When you really get down to it, tone is kinda arbitrary in fiction. Serious stories can have humorous moments, and lighthearted or otherwise straightforward stories can have dark moments. Some of them jarringly so. Relativity is the name of the game when it comes to ranking these. The darker the moment, the less dark the rest of the game is, the higher it places. In the same vein, these moments can't have a significant impact on the tone of the game. Ideally, the moment should come out of nowhere, then the game presses on like nothing happens. Oh, one final note. These are surprisingly dark moments, not surprisingly dark games. That could easily be its own list. If there was ever a game that was perfectly able to balance comedy and legitimate stakes, it'd be Borderlands 2. On the one hand, you're the last hope against a megalomaniacal businessman trying to wipe out a planet's worth of people. On the other hand, everyone's a wisecracking egomaniacal whack job, each wackier than the last. This is best shown through the main villain, Handsome Jack. He'll make you fear for your life one minute, and make you laugh out loud the next.
I'm racking my brain trying to think of a name for that diamond pony I bought. I was gonna call it Piss for Brains in honor of you, but that just feels immature. Hey, maybe Butt Stallion? Nah, that's even worse. I'll tell you what, I'll give it some more thought.
That all changes when you get to Control Core Angel. Here, you're hit with two massive plot twists in a row. Angel is A, a siren, and B, Jack's daughter. Yep. This whole time, he's been using her for personal gain. No wonder he was always talking to her like a little kid. Keep in mind, this happened before the events of the first game. In order to stop the vault key from being charged, Angel asks you to cut off her iridium ejectors, which could kill her in the process. After that ordeal, you're hit with two emotional gut punches. Jack kills Roland, the leader of the Resistance, and kidnaps Lilith. For the rest of the game, his personality does a complete 180. He goes from jovially taunting to threatening your mere existence.
You're a plague, bandit. You and your kind have corrupted Pandora with your greed and your hatred. It comes down to me to save this world from your kind. But I'm more than happy to do it.
And that's the reason I can't put it any higher. Control Core Angel heralds too much of a tone shift in the game. The only reason it still qualifies for the list is that there are still interesting moments to be found through the character dialogue and side missions.
I'll have to take the beach so I can leave this planet for good!
It's been juggled and debated about what the right way to play Undertale is. Do you go pacifist, genocide, or neutral? For the record, I want to say outright that the right path is whatever you want it to be. It's all valid. Unless your agenda includes killing Perfect Sunshine Boy, then you need to click off this video and rethink your life choices ASAP! However, over time, it more or less looked like the true pacifist route was the actual way to go story-wise. It lays out most of the lore, it has a happy ending for everyone involved. Overall, it's pretty light and idealistic, except for one very noticeable, disturbing level in this seemingly cheery route. The True Lab. This eerie, ominous chamber is a hidden underground addition to Alphys's lab. It can only be accessed in the true pacifist route. So, you managed to find the elevator and made your way down to the spooky lab. And you know what? At this point, I'm ready for anything. Nothing could possibly be scarier than Photoshop Flowey. Come on, Cryptid Spooky Lab, hit me with your best.
Wait, I lied! I was not ready for anything. No, so much no.
And just like that, gone is the warmth of Goat Mama. Gone is the joy of Sunshine Boy and Fish Tsundere. Gone is the mild annoyance of Sansa's puns. All you feel now is utter dread when you discover the darkest secret of the underground, the Amalgamates. These twisted, mutilated beasts were once regular monsters who fell over time. Turns out that Alphys was experimenting on them with human determination, trying to bring them back from the dead and help them escape the underground. Noble effort, bad execution. They weren't compatible and instead mutated into these fusion abominations. Oh, and the cherry on top, we find out that Flowey was born in this lab. Everything we endure from this demonic weed in this route and any other was born from this lab. All because Alphys tried to play God. Now, everything about this is terrifying. The environment, the actual body horror, the lore, it's all delightfully morbid. But it's kind of undermined by the existence of the genocide route. Going psycho killer, unable to escape the guild after resetting, is abundantly dark. It makes the surprise of the true lab kinda moot when you go the murder route first. But, you know, when I think about it, who actively does the genocide route first? Either way, how you choose to Undertale is up to you. But just be warned, there's darkness hidden in light, paved by good intentions. You ever notice that the people behind Kirby seem really fond of Fire Emblem? I mean, Sakurai's obsession with putting Fire Emblem in Smash is a no-brainer, but even without him, Hal does seem to like sneaking in a few inspirations into Kirby here and there. I mean, we have a romantically involved monarch who got brainwashed by a force of darkness into conquering other lands, a father who was driven to madness from pursuing the means to save his lost child, and a cultist who worships a dark god to get revenge on the world for oppressing his people and forcing him into a life of paranoia. But hey, it's Kirby. They're obviously not going to go that dark. Highness got spared from his sad fate, so surely the others are fine, right? Oh boy, if you thought Fire Emblem villains had it rough, look what happened with Sectonia and Haltmann. Sure, when we first meet them, they seem like your typical megalomaniacs with flashy boss fights. And yes, they are that. But once we find out what they've been through, the finale's got tragedy of errors written all over it. Sectonia lost herself to the madness caused by the dark mirror gifted to her by Taranza, who didn't even realize what he did. When Sectonia is pushed to the edge to kill Kirby, she's fully consumed by the corruption and has to be put down. It's even worse in the true arena since Sectonia did realize what happened to her and is suffering because of it. The whole fight, she was crying for Kirby to kill her, since it's all she can do after being reduced to a husk of sheer destruction. Regardless of what happens, she dies a tragic death, and as far as we know, Taranza is still coping with the loss of his lover. Then there's Haltmann, who was influenced by Stardream into becoming a corporate madman to the point where he forgot about the daughter he was trying to save. And by the time he remembered, it was already too late since Stardream had already absorbed him into its core. When Kirby's out to beat it, it uses Haltmann's soul as a shield for Kirby to blast open until he's completely erased, letting out his last few screams of agony. Could you imagine how f***ed up Susie must have been over this? She came back to meet her dad after being trapped in limbo for goodness knows how long, and not only did he neglect her, but they never got a chance to really make amends with each other. It's no wonder she didn't even wave goodbye to Kirby at the end of Robobot. Kirby is no stranger to dark elements and ghoulish imagery, but most of the time, every game ends all well and good. The pure evil monsters always die, and the redeemable antagonists become friends and get to live another day. Not these two, however. They deserve better, but they'll never have it.
Hey, who left this bowl of onions here?
The only thing that puts them this low is, well, at this point we begin to expect the dark moment in a Kirby story. Like, oh, okay, this game is cute, how fun. All right, where's the Eldritch Monster? I know you're out there. This is a Kirby game. I know what this is. Kirby paw screws would get along real fine with the Pokédex. Miitopia, an RPG adventure where every single character can be anyone you want. Heroes, villains, NPCs, you name it! The possibilities for goofy role-playing are endless! Or you just download other people's memes because you're not creative enough. I don't know. With such a silly premise, you don't think the game will ever take itself seriously at all. The main villain, the Dark Lord, is just your stereotypical goofy villain who messes with people by taking their faces and slapping them onto a bunch of monsters. It's later revealed that the Dark Lord is just some guy being possessed by a dark curse, which would then possess the great stage to become the Darker Lord.
What a name!
Yes, I guess that makes me the whiter mage. And after you defeat the Darker Lord, you free the great sage and reduce the dark curse to a helpless little wisp. Then you learn about how the dark curse came to be. Once upon a time, the dark curse was just a normal person. Their life was boring and everyone around them thought they were boring. And so they spent their whole life alone. They blamed it all on their own appearance, thinking their plain looks were what made them uninteresting. So they removed their face, which in return removed themselves from other people's lives. Since then, they harbor nothing more than hate and malice, passing away and becoming a curse that lives on to spite people by doing to others what they did to themselves, removing their faces. Afterwards, you're given a choice to either put the dark curse out of its misery or give it another chance to live a new life with a new face. It really does put into perspective. Is it better to just let the curse rest in peace, but never see the chance to have a fulfilling life? Or is it better to let it live again, knowing it could still be a spiteful threat, or letting it live with all its guilt? But the most gripping question of all, why am I asking all of this in a game where you can ship Pepsi Man and Kool-Aid Man with each other? All joking aside, this is a surprisingly poignant backstory for an otherwise silly villain. Despite how grim it is, it does fit thematically well with the rest of the game, being about the value of faces and identity. After all, a big part of Miitopia's fun is the many faces you can slap on these different characters and giggle over the silly things that happen to them. In the end, the Dark Curse just wanted to be a part of the fun. It's a bit tricky to measure how dark the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games are. Most of them do tend to start off fairly bright and cheery, only to smack you in the face with some gloomy twists and turns. From the entire world freezing in time to a major character frickin' dying, there's no shortage of dark moments that became a staple with these games. So, how about we look at the one from the first, as well as the most lighthearted title of them all, Rescue Team. The plot is fairly digestible. You become a Pokemon and make friends with other Pokemon you meet. You travel through dungeons, rescue people, and get paid for it. There isn't a super big overarching plot going on, but what we did get is interesting enough that it leads us to a pretty heavy twist. As the game progresses, we learn more about the disasters that endangered the lives of many Pokemon. It's later revealed that this all happened because a human disturbed Ninetales by grabbing her tail, leading to a curse that turned them into a Pokemon, followed up by various disasters. Gengar then steps in and starts pointing fingers at our main character, as they appear to share similar origins. This made everyone in town, including other rescue teams, turn against the protagonist, believing that if they were destroyed, the curse would end. And so the protagonist and their partner had no choice but to run away and never return. From this point on, you're forced to go through a Fugitive arc. No stores to buy items from, no dojo to train in, and no recruits to bring along with you. It's the first time you feel truly defenseless in these games. All you have with you is your partner, who still believes in your innocence and will go through thick and thin to stick up for you. Throughout all this, you cling to the hope that by finding Ninetales, you can disprove the allegations and return to society once again. For a relatively simple game, it does a great job of weighing in the emotions when it matters. You don't just have the plot turn against you, you have entire gameplay mechanics taken away and forced to break through several dungeons without them. So when small glimmers of hope come in, like Absol joining your party, it's all the more gratifying that you're making this much progress. And when everything comes together as Ninetales proves our innocence, the euphoria is unbelievable.
Is your refrigerator running? Then you better go catch it!
Sure, you could say future Mystery Dungeon games have much darker and more tense moments than this. And yes, they're all. But those games are much more tonally consistent, that the moments aren't nearly as jarring. The contrast between Rescue Team's overall tone and the Fugitive arc stands out so much more compared to the others, and to this day, it remains one of the highlights of a story in any Pokemon game. So much so that Legends Arceus copied its homework just a couple of years after its remake came out. Yeah, I love Legends Arceus and all, but good gravy, that climax sucks. Thank goodness for the post-game. When you think Ace Attorney, you think crazy witnesses, crazier culprits, and murder mysteries that have more twists than a pretzel stand. Yeah, you play as a lawyer trying to solve murder mysteries, but when some of the witnesses you bring are a rapping pirate, a teacher who won't stop throwing chalk at you, and an actual orca, seriousness really just goes out the window. Despite that, we've had some dark moments in the series, but despite how dark some of these scenes got, none of them were able to push the series to get an M rating. Well, at least until Dual Destinies. I talked about Athena a few times, and she's one of my favorite female characters and one of the most underrated characters in the series. She's just a bright ray of sunshine, always keeping us smile, and has some fun antics with her in-trial gimmick and her very animated emotional states. But as with any ball of light, the more it shines, the larger the shadow it casts. When Athena was a child, her mother Metis was a psychologist working to give robots the ability to read and display emotion like humans. One day, Metis' student Simon Blackwell visited her to get an analysis of a voice recording from an international spy he was chasing called the Phantom. While she did the analysis, it made her a target. The Phantom's mission was twofold: sabotage a rocket launch and kill Metis to take the data. Athena walked in at this point and saw her mother on the floor and the culprit with a bloody katana. Using a nearby knife, she attacked her killer, eventually stabbing his hand. The Phantom escaped at this time, but that left Athena dazed and confused. She asked one of the robots to bring her mother to the robot disassembly table. Blackwell enters at this point and... well, crap. For context, Athena was pretty innocent and sheltered, and in her dazed state, she didn't realize the difference between humans and robots. Blackwell assumed Athena killed her mother, so he sliced up the robot and led Athena out of there. He took the blame for the murder despite Athena's pleas that he was innocent. Athena blocked out her mother's killer for many years, only seeing flashbacks of her standing in a sea of blood. It wasn't until Phoenix figured out the truth that she was able to free herself from her past and find her mother's real killer. While there are other dark moments in Ace Attorney, this one just hits different. The flashbacks of blood she has, the innocent face she makes when saying something so insane, and the repressed emotions representing her deep despair. No wonder this is the only game to get an M rating. Now, are we getting another Ace Attorney anytime soon? Please? I don't know, I'm kind of in a personal mood, you know? I mean, Tears of the Kingdom came out, and it's, freaking dark, which I love. How much are you willing to sacrifice in the name of protecting something you care about? The answer will, of course, vary from person to person. Many people consider the laying down of one's own life to be the highest form of sacrifice. But there are things far, far worse than mere death. In the opening act of The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda and Link find the mummified Ganondorf, who awakens from his deathless slumber and blasts the pair with an overwhelming amount of blight. Link loses his arm and the Master Sword is destroyed, and Zelda gets sent to the distant past. In order to repair the Master Sword, Link sends it back in time to Zelda, and repair it she does, but at a terrible, terrible cost. You see, the Master Sword grows stronger as it is bathed in sacred power, and can even repair itself by doing so. So, how does Zelda bathe the Master Sword in sacred power? Does she take it to a holy site and bury it there for Link to dig up in the future? Does she perform some kind of ritual? Does she pray for the goddess's blessing?
No.
No, she does not. One little nugget of foreshadowing, literally, are the secret stones, artifacts which amplify a person's innate power. Unfortunately, even with that, it isn't enough to defeat Ganondorf or fix the Master Sword. Zelda needs to get stronger. There is one way though. If someone swallows the secret stone, they transform into an immortal dragon, and their powers are amplified 1,000-fold. However, there is a cost. They lose their minds and become little more than senseless beasts. Zelda decides that horrifying fate is worth the cost of saving the world. As if losing one's cognition and sanity weren't horrifying enough, well, the transformation sequence sure takes care of that. Also, if the split timeline theory is true, and this goes all the way back to the founding of Hyrule, like the founding of Hyrule, then there's a small chance that in some of the branches, there exists Light Dragon Zeldas that are stuck like that.
So can I start therapy now, or should I wait for the nightmares to set in?
In a series that has plenty of surprisingly dark moments, believe me when I say Zelda's transformation into the Dragon of Light takes the cake. The only reason this entry isn't number 1 is because Zelda does regain her humanity in the end, to the relief of many and the disappointment of some, I'm sure.
And you're supposed to be dead.
I got better?
Giygas. Oh, come on. How could I not? Nearly 3 decades after its release, Earthbound is still considered one of the defining cult classics. The simple yet effective combat, witty humor, and lighthearted story are still praised to this day. The story in particular is lauded thanks to all the delightfully absurd situations you find yourself in. At one point, you need to remove a pencil statue by erasing it. And that's one of the less weird things that happens. While there is some dark stuff, it's more bizarre than actively unnerving. Mostly anyway. That all changes when it's time for the final boss. Things aren't too bad at first with a relatively straightforward battle against Giygas and Porky. Porky then claims that if you were to see Giygas' true form, you'd be terrified. And oh boy does it live up to the hype. The music goes from an intense bop to just disturbing. The background gives you nothing but his distorted face staring at you. Porky even goes so far as to taunt you, saying that you might as well just cry out for mommy and daddy. You eventually realize there's simply no way to beat Giygas on your own, and you pray for help. Aw, look at that. Everyone back at Saturn Valley can hear you. Maybe this won't be so much for that idea. For as sweet as it is to see your allies supporting you, it's kind of hard to appreciate that with the whole horrific abomination staring you in the face thing. All the while, Giygas is wailing in agony. It sure is a good thing this game doesn't have voice. I spoke too soon again. The fight is capped off with a death that makes you feel less like you won and more like the game glitched your victory. It gets even worse if you played the original Mother/Earthbound beginnings. To make a long story short, Giygas was once an alien who was driven to revenge after having his technology stolen by a human. As a result of his insanity and powers going haywire, he turned into this. And then there's his real life inspiration. Creator Shigesato Itoi based him on a traumatic memory where he accidentally walked into the wrong movie theater as a child and witnessed a murder scene. At the very least, you can take solace in the fact that nothing like Giygas could ever exist IRL. Unlike the next entry. Okay, we have reached number 2, and I'll admit, this one is pretty heavy. While number 1 is more surprising, this one is definitely the darkest on this list. And it's from Trails of all things. Okay, you guys are a small but surprisingly profitable demographic. Give me a break. So let's talk about a fan favorite character, Ren. When you first meet her, she seems like your innocent, mischievous girl who is separated from her parents. She bonds pretty quickly with your party member Tita due to their shared love of technology. But it turns out these parents that she is separated from are a giant robot she considers her guardian, and that she is actually a member of the evil society Ouroboros that act as the main villains of the game. Throughout the rest of the game, she performs as the antagonist, acting as the personal foil for Tita and Estelle. But you can tell she isn't all there. While she is incredibly intelligent for a girl her age, something Trails will do plenty of in the future, she is extremely axe crazy, going between sweet and innocent and psychopathically creepy and insane at the drop of a hat. Oh yeah, a reminder, she's 12. Don't go with her to a tea party. They involve maiming, explosions, crumpets, and a cutting from her scythe. Despite this, she is conflicted about feeling actual love and warmth from not only Tita, but also main characters Estelle and Joshua. This conflict inside her leads her to run away from the trio as she's struggling over the idea that she can get love from someone else that isn't her robot and the society. In Trails in the Sky the Third, Ren joins as a begrudging party member, and throughout this game, there are these memory doors that build upon the past of the main characters. Deep in the Abyss, an optional dungeon that only opens in the final chapter, lay Star Door 15. And in this door, we learn why Ren is how she is. And, disturbing content warning here. When Ren was 5 years old, she was kidnapped by a child experimenting cult and brought to one of their facilities. This facility, known as Paradise, was more than just a lab. It was also a child sex ring that was usually frequented by politicians and rich folk of the skeeviest kind. To handle this, Ren created artificial personalities for herself based on the other children. While it worked to help her cope, it also led to her being requested a lot since she was subconsciously changing these personalities to fit the client. As time went on and she got more used to the treatment, she killed off these personalities in her head until she woke up from her self-imposed psychosis. To cope from here, she inflicted self-abuse to keep herself sane and not fall into the psychosis again. The experimentation and work caused her to develop an insane intellect, but at the cost of her young psyche. The first half of the door is insanely creepy. They don't even hide the implications of what's going on. Even the first scene when a patron asks, "What number would you like?" that sets a dark tone. You see Ren talking to her personas, you see the internal suffering they are facing, and you see the realization of what they are. It's... We don't get any explicit images until the very end, where younger Joshua and his brother find a tortured Ren among dead bodies and bring her with them to Ouroboros on a whim. And from there, the Trail series happens. She goes on to think her parents sold her to the cult as a way to fix their business expenses. She sees them with a new child, thinking him to be a replacement for her, that she was nothing but a thing for them to sell. So yeah, not surprising how she ended up the creepy psychopath we see in Sky 2. The good news from here is that Ren surprisingly recovered. She finds out that her parents didn't sell her, but she was kidnapped and they thought she was dead. She's adopted by Estelle and Joshua's family and lives as their sister. She develops a strong friendship with Tita and considers her as her best friend. And as a Cold Steel 4, she even meets with her family again in a very wholesome scene. Not that she reveals who she is to them. Similar to Athena, Ren's backstory is just... what the hell? While even Sky the Third has other dark moments like Kevin's backstory, it's not this! This was so bad that it was censored in later versions of the game, but its implications not only set up a major conflict in the next arc, but also the rest of the series. However, if you want a complete tone shift, see number 1. Dead Marowak, Pokemon Red and Blue. The world of Pokemon is so bright and cheerful, until you remember that Pokemon can actually die. The Nuke, Call of Duty 4. We were so sure we were gonna get to save everyone. Sadly, war doesn't come without a tragedy. Battle of Valhalla, Fire Emblem genealogy. This moment got memed so much, people forgot how harrowing it is that the main character dies mid-game. The Ring of Chaos, Kid Icarus Uprising. Haha, funny fourth wall breaking game, genocidal goddess. Haha, funny fourth wall breaking game. Give us a sequel, Nintendo. Middle Ages Ending, Live Alive. This would absolutely have made the list, if not for the sheer abject existential horror that is the near future chapter. Fire Mountain, Forestia. Let's be honest, this is the only reason anybody remembers this game. Genociding the Forest People, Etrian Odyssey. I know you were hired to do this, but at the same time, why? John's backstory, No More Heroes. It's a good thing this part was skipped over because, geez, all that would make this boss really hard to focus on. One of my fellow writers has been itching to write about these two. Wish granted and how? Sam and Max, one of Telltale Games' longest lasting series and one of their very first. For all the darker subjects the duo tackled, the mafia, presidential assassinations, conspiracy nuts, dirty politics, abduction, terminal Tourette syndrome, Scientology spoofs, and arguably the most depressing portrayal of hell, none of it is really taken seriously. It's just played for laughs, and our freelance boys just shrug it off or make a mean comment or meme on it, while everyone around them are the ones that suffer. Nothing really gets to them. But come season 3, The Devil's Playhouse, and that mixed things up big time. The laughs are still very much here, but they give the season a more cinematic feel. More dynamic lighting, a tighter, serialized plot, and a more sinister, foreboding atmosphere. They even have a Twilight Zone-style narrator this time around. We'll get back to him later. Already, we're dealing with some pretty heavy shit, Doc. Like having Max frickin' lobotomized in one episode, throwing Sam into a mental breakdown. I almost wanted to use that one, but then the season finale happened. To set the scene, Max has been turned into an eldritch kaiju, and his head is about to explode after using his new psychic powers too much. Okay, this already looks pretty bleak, but I'm sure they'll think of a half-baked plan to get out of this one. They always do. He's gonna make it, right? They wouldn't really kill Max off, right?
Max?
Right?
There's nothing we can do. I'm sorry, Sam.
That's it? After all those adventures, he just bites it?
So, yeah. Max is dead. For real this time. He went out sacrificing himself to save all of New York City, and to add salt to the wound, they can't bring him back.
Gone. Reduced to atoms.
I mean, he's quote-unquote died before in the franchise, and it's mostly been played for laughs, but here, it's completely straight. Just look at how miserable Sam is during the end credits, wandering aimlessly through New York without his little buddy. It's just, where did this come from? This is surprisingly grim for an otherwise zany video game series. But remember that Twilight Zone narrator I mentioned earlier? Spoiler alert, he's actually Max's super ego and the overarching villain of the season. And he orchestrated this whole thing to have Max killed and the city destroyed because he didn't like Max's chaotic personality. But wait, he's part of Max's brain, so... Wait a minute. Did Max secretly want to end himself? I know that sounds like a stretch, but this revelation about Max's superego opens a whole lot of implications. Like how underneath this trigger-happy, wisecracking, fuzzy white rabbity thing, there's a sad clown who can't stand to look at his own face. In the end, however, they pull a bit of a switcheroo where another Max from an alternate timeline ends up taking the real Max's place. It may seem like a cop-out, but so what? Can you honestly say you'd want to see the freelance police split up like this? Still, major credit where credit is due. The fact that they had the cojones to pull off this kind of tragedy in a normally lighthearted series and do it this well is kind of brilliant, which is good because dark stories kind of became Telltale's forte afterwards, for better or for worse. I'm the Fiery Joker, and a wise man once said, "In darkness there is always light, and sometimes you need a guiding hand to help you towards that light." I don't know who said that, but they're probably going to be on the next list. Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. Check out my other channels such as Joshua Burner for reactions and other stuff, Dragon Fighter Gaming for tabletop, and Bob Equestria for cartoons. Consider checking below the video and donating to my Patreon, Streamlabs for my merchandise, or becoming a YouTube member. Thanks for watching.